Scrap Mechanic, the vibrant cartoony multiplayer sandbox where you can build anything your heart desires. From functioning cars, trucks, planes, cranes, and trains, the limit is quite truly your imagination. But although the game may appear to be bright and cheerful at the surface, aspects of the game can be incredibly unsettling. Hello, I'm Jotrain, and today I'll be taking you on a journey down below into the Scrap Mechanic Iceberg. If you don't already know what an iceberg diagram is, it's a tier list particularly for a franchise that lists the most known to the least known facts, and the deeper you go, the more obscure and unsettling it gets. I made the iceberg, so I'm quite familiar with the topics on the list, and without further ado, let's get straight into it. The Sky. Swedish developers. In late 2011, developers Pontus Holmboom and Casper Antonius begin work on an engineering game in which players can build machines, vehicles, and buildings, and share their creations online. The game utilizes the same simple building mechanics of Minecraft, but enables you to make your builds function in a physics-based environment. Their indie title, later to be known as Scrap Mechanic, would be released onto Steam in January 2016 by their own company, Axolot Games, in Stockholm, Sweden. It just goes to show that all great things come from Sweden. Survival Backstory. The survival backstory can be found on the Steam store page and on the wiki. It tells the story of a mechanic tasked to maintain the robots working in the fields on an automatic agricultural planet. However, as the spacecraft comes in for a landing, it loses control and crashes. The mechanic survives the impact but becomes stranded, and they quickly find out that the robots working in the fields have become hostile. They then have to use their quick thinking, creativity, and the environment to their advantage to stay alive from the savage farm bots. Hay Maze. The Hay Maze, or Labyrinth in the game files, is a maze constructed from hay bales which generates east of the fruit packing station. The maze is notable as it is a convenient location for farming, as the hay bales are indestructible and the farm bots cannot navigate throughout the maze. Sleeping Capsule Scrapyard. The Sleeping Capsule Scrapyard is a pile of discarded sleeping capsules in a water-filled hole, located east of the fruit packing station and north of the hay maze. The capsules are the same ones used at the mechanic station. There is currently nothing of interest here, however the tile is notable for being the only one of its kind on the map. Dead Wok Crates. In the warehouse you can find a banana crate stuffed with wok corpses covered with tape. Woks being a cow-like alien creature. The wok crate was mentioned to be the doings of tape bots in one of the scavenger voice logs. More of that later. Hay, stone, and tree variants can also be found here. However, none of these parts serve a purpose at the moment. Melted farm bots. In the burnt forest biome, you can see frozen farm bots, or as I call them, drill bots, melted and turned into sludge. This biome is dangerous as many farm bots spawn here, being the strongest enemy in the game as of now. Considering the cheerful and colourful nature of the game, the tile is quite dark and unsettling. The Surface. Second crash ship. At the top left border of the map, it is possible to find another crash maintenance ship. The ship is labelled 3 as opposed to the 6 on the ship you start at. The ship lacks a mini craftbot, logbook terminal, and master battery slot, and has fewer items inside. It is assumed to be the ship of the mechanic in the scavenger voice logs, which we'll touch on in a later entry. Redbeat and Raft Easter eggs. In the game there are several references to Raft, which was published by Axolot Games. This includes a shark mount in the creative game mode that can be found in the player's backpack. Once it's activated, it plays a musical cue, moves its head, tail, and opens its jaw. The vegetable Redbeat in the game is also a nod to Redbeat Interactive, which is the name of the developers of Raft. There is also a Scrap Mechanic Easter egg in Raft, as when you fish, there is a small chance of obtaining a secret duck ornament wearing the backpack and outfit of the main character from the game. Stabilizer Mug Sticker. On the logbook cabinet in the crash ship, a sticker with a stabilizer mark drawn on it can be found. This is a reference to a meme on Scrapman's channel, who was a popular Scrap Mechanic YouTuber. This then begs the question if there are references to other Scrap Mechanic YouTubers as well, located in the game. Wok Statue. In the Meadow biome, a rare tile with a statue of a wok can be found, made with rock assets. You can often find live woks roaming around here. There is also a keep out sign at the front of the premise, the same sign used in the front of the warehouse. The tile is concealed by trees, which makes finding it more difficult. Perhaps this is the wok's hideout from being hunted by the haybots and toadbots. Logbook entries. The logbook includes locations of key importance alongside with messages of the associated entries. The first message reads, "Better keep the ship's coordinates handy, maybe I can get back there where I can make her spaceworthy again," implying that the ship could be prepared, and an entry which details the status of the ship after the events of the crash, further adding to the lore of Scrap Mechanic. It also includes the first mention of Wonk Enterprises, which is the name of the main organization in the game, which I'll go on about later. Main Menu Vehicle. The main menu vehicle is a bike that appeared on the main menu from the beta Steam release to the survival update. The vehicle also made an appearance on the old loading screen, though the Beware Farmbot sign was placed differently. The vehicle was also used in several Twitter posts made by Scrap Mechanic, demonstrating the auto-generated roads and the wok ragdoll physics. However, after the survival release, the vehicle was removed and replaced with a platform so that players could now add their own creations to the title screen. I wonder if Scrap Mechanic have a story behind the vehicle's creation, as it's quite a prominent vehicle used throughout Scrap Mechanic's media. Ogre Rendering Engine. Scrap Mechanic formerly used the Ogre Rendering Engine, which stands for Object Oriented Graphics Rendering Engine. It was used alongside a custom plugin named Bullet, which is an external physics engine responsible for all the physical calculations in Scrap Mechanic. However, the engine was changed with the first major update, known as the Winter Update. The new in-house rendering engine had been in development since August and was made to fix numerous bugs. The game engine is also notable as it was the same rendering engine that Roblox used until 2014. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 refers to a major content update for Survivor Mode, which contains upcoming features that will be added to Scrap Mechanic in some point in the future. These features have been mentioned in several dev blogs and on Twitter. These include Quest, Mining Island, Cablebot, Trashbot, Red Totobot, Chili Pepper, Sticky Wheels, Plasma Drill and Saw, Battery Generator, Draggable Wedges, a Cable Roll, Warehouse Changes, New Clothing, the ability to load blueprints with the lift in Survival, Digital Clock and Sign, Weather, Respawn Bed, new challenges for Challenge Mode, the ability to place robots in the Challenge Builder, and the tutorial part. We don't know the exact date that Chapter 2 will be released, but considering how long it took them to release Survival, the wait may be longer than anticipated. The Shallow Waters. Golden Hammer Glitch. In older versions of Scrap Mechanic, there was a glitch where, on occasion, the head of the sledgehammer would look golden in appearance. This glitch also occurred to other tools as well, such as the well tool, as it would give the metallic part of the tool a golden tint. I'm not entirely sure why it did this, but I presume it is due to the tool using the wrong ASG texture, the texture responsible for the transparency, shine, and glow of an object. Maybe the dev should implement this as a feature in the game. Perhaps when you complete a warehouse, you get golden tools as an extra reward for dedicated players. Alpha Parts and Models. In the 2014 debut trailer, there are several parts that were removed or modified from the beta release for the game. These parts include cardboard boxes, which came in two variants, a cyan desk chair, a wooden ladder, and a light blue crate, which were all removed prior to release. There were also some parts that remained in the game, however used different models. For instance, The driver's seat originally displayed a fuel bar on its panel instead of a fake speedometer. The bearings, which did not have their iconic texture and was just a solid orange. The fuse box, which had an indented panel and centered bolt icon, and the air conditioner, which had curved edges and was blue, similar to its post-beta release model. The farm bots, known as agribots at the time, also made an appearance in the alpha version and had functional AI and animation. Another minor alteration is with the 4-wave arrow icon, the icon shown when placing a block, as it was originally yellow instead of the distinct blue color it is today. Plant container QR code. On the plant container, an open plant container, a QR code can be seen on its side. Upon scanning the QR code, you'll be led to an image of a biker who's wearing what appears to be Cornish pastry on his head. It is unknown who the man in the image is and why it was linked to the QR code. Axolot is based in Sweden, but there has been a few times British humour was thrown out by them, so that would equally be as possible. The baked good mystery continues. You are not welcome sign. The welcome sign may seem like a friendly greeting at first, but deep inside, it's hiding a not so welcoming secret. In the game files, if you open the ASG texture as mentioned in the Golden Hammer glitch entry and boost up its opacity, the sign now reads, "You are not welcome." This text can be seen in-game when viewing the sign on certain angles. Now that you notice this, you will never unsee this unwelcoming message on this part again. Freelance concept art. Several freelancers have been responsible for creating pre-production art for Scrap Mechanic. One of the notable freelancers is Tony Holmsten, who is a Swedish concept artist who has made several illustrations for Scrap Mechanic on his website. Here you can find sketches and illustrations of the ruins, the ship, a warehouse, and the scrapyard. Other concept artists who you might not have known include Robin Ligmerth, who was responsible for designing the sensor and piston, and Max Freud, who has made a lot of designs for the game, which include loot crates, ruin assets, the haybot, bowl crates, the cookbot, the meals that the cookbot produces, the packing station produce packer, the chemical container, the glow stick, and the glow bug. It's interesting to see the behind the scenes of the game, to see how the game developed into what we know and love as Scrap Mechanic today. Old warehouse design. A blueprint of the beta warehouse design was found and leaked onto the Steam Workshop. The warehouse, which originates from version 0.2.4, was originally constructed out of building materials and would have both destructible interiors and exteriors. The rooms are quite similar to the rooms used in the warehouse today, and the shelving resembles Tony Holsten's illustrations of the warehouse. However, the warehouse was changed to have the exterior made of tile assets due to technical limitations. They could not be made as large as originally imagined. Secret warehouse tunnels. On the first floor of the warehouse, from the left of the elevator near the restroom, a cracked stone spot can be found on the wall. After placing an explosive on your lift and detonating it, they reveal shortcuts and secret tunnels. These tunnels contain square mesh blocks, support ledges, hollow concrete, concrete pallets, concrete block molds, and small explosives, which lead to other areas of the tunnel. In terms of loot, component kits can be found, but not much else. Perhaps these tunnels will be expanded in a later update. The Depths. Wonk Enterprises. Wonk Enterprises, originally known as The Company, is an interplanetary organization responsible for the agriculture and industry on the planet where the game takes place. The company likely has ownership of the planet, and many others like it dedicated to the purpose of food production. There is a theory that the corporation travels to distant planets that it comes into contact with, and farms them for their resources. Due to the high populations on the metropolitan planets, there is no room for farming, and the minerals were depleted in only a few decades, leaving a cold, dead husk of a world behind. This is also supported by the logo, as its design is made of a planet in the center, with two synths above it, a tool used for cutting crops, and a drill beneath it, implicating that the mechanics are mostly farmers and miners. Rip-off iOS/Android games. Similar to how Minecraft gets knockoff clones made and uploaded onto the App Store and Play Store, Scrap Mechanic also gets its fair share of rip-off games, trying to cash in with Scrap Mechanic's popularity. These include names such as Evercraft Mechanic, Online Sandbox from Scrap, Evertech Sandbox, Supertech Sandbox, Genius Mechanic, Craft Vehicle, Car Mechanic Simulator, and Scrap Mechanic Metal Game, which cost a whopping $10.99. Two of the notable ones are Evertech and Supertech Sandbox. Not only do they use the same premise of Scrap Mechanic, of letting you build functional vehicles in an open world sandbox out of small blocks, but it straight up steals assets from the game. I guess if you want to play a game like Scrap Mechanic on your mobile device, or you just don't want to spend your money on the game, this is an option you can take. Just whatever you do, don't buy this rip-off game. Cut survival content/clothing. There are several cut clothing items which were mentioned in customization descriptions.json. These include full tuxedo, duck, and space hiker outfits. A jetpack is also listed in the backpack section, though it is not part of an outfit. I should also mention the exosuit from Devblog 12, as it may or may not be implemented further into the development of the game. Pre-built vehicles known as farmer cars were also to be found in the survival mode at some point, either to be used before obtaining a craftbot, likely prior to the addition of the mini craftbot in the ship, as an option for players who did not want to build a vehicle themselves. They would have been left behind by farmers, possibly near farmer shacks. In addition, there are also several parts which were designed for the farmer cars which have not been implemented into the game. The models of the parts can still be found within the game. They include hubcaps for the rear wheels, which were planned to be customizable, a concave wedge, license plates, and an antenna. It was likely cut because the developers wished to encourage players to build their own vehicles. North Korea Final Lo-Fi.wave. This is the name of the file that plays after you beat a challenge in challenge mode. The song shares a striking resemblance with communist anthems. A comment revealed that the song is actually based after a North Korean anthem, which translates to, "The general is the great guardian," which is most likely to why it was given the name North Korea. Listening to the two songs will reveal that they actually sound incredibly similar. Take a listen. Menu music and Mog City similarities. The intro for the Scrap Mechanic menu music takes inspiration from the melody of Mog City, being the name of a Minecraft song composed by C418. This is evident as the song uses the same first three notes of the main melody, but transposed in a lower octave and slightly slower tempo. This can be better perceived by playing both songs over the top each other, which I'll play now. Not only that, but both songs are also incredibly similar, as they start off slowly and then gradually get more louder while repeating the same melody. Minecraft Prototype. The future scrap mechanic developers, Casper and Pontus, worked on a port of Mojang's Minecraft for the Xbox 360. Mojang later collaborated with 4J Studios to make the official port, but the two Swedes were inspired by their work and expanded on the project, developing an entire game which would later be known as Scrap Mechanic. Although the game now differs greatly from Minecraft in both art style and game mechanics, they still attract a very similar audience who enjoy the creative freedom to build anything they desire and explore in an open world survival environment. Leaked block/parts. Several blocks and parts were found in the game files of the pre-release of Survival Mode and leaked onto the Steam Workshop. These include a coal block, a concrete slab block with a more cracked texture, a copper block, an ice block, a mechanical block which resembles a printed circuit board, a taped plaster block with tape similar to the ones found in the warehouse, strong steel block, and super strong steel block, being the primitive forms of the tier 2 and tier 3 metal, super heavy concrete block, test 01 block, and building 01 block, which I assume is the original version of the scrap metal, as it looks similar and it has a metallic sound. There were also other blocks that were leaked, which include the old illustration block, old spaceship block, and also the old indestructible block, a predecessor to today's cracked concrete/framework block, all taken from version 0.1.16. There were also several light parts, which were leaked that never made it into the game, such as the fluorescent LED lights, a 6x2 and 6x3 variant, and a 3x3 round light, which for some reason is used as wheels in this promotional image for Scrap Mechanic. The Fathoms. Radio Robot Interruptions. The radio is a device that plays a loop of 6 songs in the game, in order of rock, retro, slow jazz, techno, jazz, and country. But when listening to the radio, robots will interrupt the signal and play noises, talk to each other, and even talk directly to the mechanic between songs. Take a listen.
We got control of the radio. And we will play our favorite songs over and over and over again. Have you found the mechanic yet? No. Find him. Find him. Mechanic another space.
Developer tiles and unused assets. There are several unused tiles made for testing purposes, which have been left in the game files. These are labelled Old Trees.tile, Elevator Test Warehouse.tile, Error.tile, Fences.tile, Loot.tile, and Test Warehouse.tile. The Old Trees tile is a small tile which, funnily enough, contain all the tree types in the game that are harvestable. Elevator Test Warehouse is a medium-sized tile consisting of various trees, harvestable rocks, a pit, and a large platform with misaligned collision, as demonstrated by me flying into it at high speed. The Error tile contains a large red arrow and an array of all the ground textures and the word "Hey", which is Swedish for hello. I assume the tile was also used to mark key importance as to the purpose of the large arrow. The Fences tile is a collection of wooden fences scattered around dismantled ruined assets. The The loot tile is a small tile consisting of all the loot harvestables found in the game. These are ember trees, oil geisters, corn, flowers, clams, cotton, and beehives, which can also be found on this rock. And lastly, test hideouts, a tile containing assets used in the hideout and other various assets and parts. Interactive parts such as the craftbot, refinery, mountable spud gun, and toilet seat will also generate here. Farmbot and mechanic concepts. Several Twitter/Facebook posts made by Scrap Mechanic reveal concept art of the farmbots and the player character. Instead of a cartoony aesthetic players are used to, the designs have a more realistic style to them, and the farmbots appear more menacing and sinister. There are drawings for other robot ideas that never made it into the game, that certainly have a spooky aura around them. It is interesting to see how different the Scrap Mechanic experience would be if it went for a more realistic art direction. Unused tools and items. Within the game files, there are several concealed meshes of tools and items which have not been implemented into the game, such as the lift remote, which the mechanic would pull up when using the lift, as seen in devlog 17, which was also mentioned to have customization features. There is also a garden shovel, which I assume would be originally used for either planting or removing crops before it was decided to just remove them without needing a tool. There are also some parts which made their way onto the chopping board, such as this plastic pumpkin model, different piston design, and the survival car parts, which I've mentioned in the cut survival content entry. Maybe the tools might be implemented into the game at some later point. You never know what could happen. Real life cookbot. The cookbot is a crafting station that cooks up delicious food to get your hunger bar back up to full. But what you won't realize is that there was a real cookbot that existed back in the 1970s. In 1972, a British architect and designer named John Priceman designed a retro-futuristic, convenient kitchen, which depicts what kitchens might look like in the future. The kitchen has a noticeable resemblance with the cookbot design used in the game. I originally assumed when creating the cookbot, the model was based after John's kitchen design. However, the original concept art of the cookbot found in devlog 18 resembles more of a microwave than the look of the kitchen. So perhaps John's kitchen prediction wasn't so far off after all. Unused audio files. By extracting the .bank file, the file responsible for all the audio in the game, you can find several secret audio files which have not been used. These include a turret sound effect, moving water, caves, boss music, alarms, the Straggler voice logs, which I'll go on about in the next entry, and a load of bird sounds. If you want to have a listen to these for yourself, I have devised a sound pack which includes all of the Scrap Mechanic audio files which I've sorted into convenient folders to make navigating it easier. Straggler voice logs. In the audio database, there are a set of 12 audio clips called Straggler voice logs. It is assumed to be of the other mechanic as mentioned in the second crash ship entry. He talks about his interesting adventures on the planet into a voice recorder and mentions that he's a robot's maintenance mechanic who crashed his ship on landing, similar to the events of the player character.
Okay, I think I got it. Hi. It's been a while since last I got any responses from HR. and I can't seem to reach Wonk HQ ever since that big storm went by.
He goes on about his struggles to survive on the planet, as with every day, his food supply slowly depletes.
Oh, and a food update. I'm all out of ready meals here, so send some of them over as well. I'm getting real hungry out here.
He makes his way throughout the warehouse and mentions how the tape bots there started stuffing war corpses into crates.
The bots are packing walks. Whole walks just stuffed into those crates like wads of toilet paper. I found out when I tore the tape off one of those things and it just burst out like a balloon animal, smacking me across the face.
However, his voice logs would end rather abruptly as he reaches the top of the warehouse, but doesn't notice the trash bot, and he certainly isn't going to kill it with just his hammer.
M-Class is casted a big old shadow. Whole place is shaking so bad it's making my teeth chatter. I think it's shaking the rolls loose. I can't chicken out now. I'm going for it. Any minute now. Okay. Just as soon as I get my...
The Abyss. Character textures. In the game files, you can find textures used for the player, such as the old male and female textures. However, looking at the textures used for the head of the player will reveal this. You can also find the textures used for the other faces on the character customization screen, which look even more eerie than the original ones. Scrap Mechanic isn't alone in this, as most character texture maps are also just as disturbing due to the uncanny valley effect because of their off-human-like appearance. This entry was mostly just an excuse to use this image on the sidebar. Challenge mode voices. In the challenge mode, voices can be heard in the background, sometimes interrupting the already chilling ambient sound. It's either a human who is speaking in a weird way, or a robot. In the audio clip, Monitor Speak _generic 04, a human can be heard coughing, which turns into a cry. I always thought I could hear the sound of someone crying in the background while playing in the challenge mode. Perhaps the robots kidnapped a fellow mechanic and are using him to say out lines for the speaker, but no one could know for sure. Hang.mesh. In the game files, under the name Hang.mesh, a model of a hanged character can be found. The model resembles a low-poly human and doesn't really suit with the aesthetics of the game. Perhaps this was the developers' way of letting off steam throughout the development of Scrap Mechanic, or perhaps they were just bored, but it's definitely something you wouldn't expect to be in a colourful cartoony game such as Scrap Mechanic. Communism theory. There is a theory that the world of Scrap Mechanic is actually a communist state. Your main weapon is a hammer, which is one of the tools on the Soviet Union symbol, which represents proletarian solidarity, a union between the pre-industrial peasantry and the working class. There are also communistic-like posters that hang around in the warehouse, with quotes such as "sickle down economy," a tool also used on the Soviet Union logo, which represents the agricultural working class. You also need to grow potatoes for your firearms and use it as ammo, which is a widely produced vegetable in Soviet Russia. And even the challenge mode anthem mentioned before sounds like a USSR anthem. And the ship you crash in is primarily red and yellow. And do you know what other communistic dictatorship uses red and yellow in their logo? McDonald's. The Soviet Union. But how did the world of Scrap Mechanic turn into a communistic state? Well, there is a theory behind its formation as well. It formed after the robots took over production of food. The former working class rebelled against the middle class, which concentrated all means of production as their property, which were now automated. The big economic gap between the class of the dispossessed and the all-possessing middle class eventually led to a revolution. Later, the robots, which were oppressed by the human communist utopia, rebelled themselves because they gained a self-awareness since their tasks required a high intelligence. This led to a stop production, a mass economic crisis, and with that, a starvation across the planets. In the game, we play as the last survivors of this apocalypse. Anyways guys, thanks for making it to the end of the video. There's quite a lot of interesting information about Scrap Mechanic and things found within the game itself that most players don't know about, so I wanted to share that with you all and also give Scrap Mechanic more recognition as it deserves to have a bigger fan base. Also, thanks to Dartfog for providing some of the entries on the Iceberg and also for your dedication in uncovering secrets in the game. If you wanted to check out the Iceberg for yourself, the link will be in the description, as well as references to the other entries mentioned in the Iceberg as well. This is my most ambitious video by far, having to research and gather all the information and make the script necessary for the video, so if you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and share the video, which will be greatly appreciated. And lastly, be sure to join the journey with Jotrain. See you all later.